The Mania has started, and you'll find slam dunk savings and selection during our Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary all year long, and that means buzzer-beating incentives and special dealer offers, like a new 24 Ford Bronco Big Bend Sasquatch, lease for $499 a month. Or a new Ford F-150, now $1,500 or 2.9% APR during this Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we're going to continue to play great basketball here. We can't wait to write the next great chapter in New Mexico basketball history.
I thought I would start there instead of the traditional triple hey.
Hey, hey!
Then I'll hit you with the triple A. How's everybody doing? That is new UNM head men's basketball coach Eric Olen. He was introduced today in the Davilo Center, which a good turnout. Nick and I were there. Super cool environment. Again, I've kind of changed my tune with what Fern Lobo, Ryan Berryman, and all those guys, Nate Strong, all those guys, Jalen Dominguez have done over there. Amy Began throwing her name out. It's not Paul Krebs anymore. So I'm happy. Anyway, before I introduce the usual suspects, and it's an OG night tonight. No guests, and I'll explain what we're doing Thursday night. Guests packed Thursday night, and I'm excited for that. I'll get to that in a moment. But Check out our website, thepitpressnm.com. Did I even mention who I was? My name's Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Please check out our website, thepitpressnm.com. A lot more written content on there. Some of it is free. Some of it we're doing the Pit Press Plus feature. IHOP and Applebee's Plus. Watch the episode of South Park. Check it out. We're going to have, obviously, it's all original content, some exclusive content. No, not like OnlyFans, maybe Patreon. But go there. Nick wrote a really awesome story about the pacing and the space that Eric Olen had at UC San Diego. So check it out. If you're looking for exclusive content, $4.99, but there will still be other free content on there. And if you hate it or love it or hate me or love me, this show will still be live. Before I get to the guests, Thursday night, Justin, who I've got booked, Bo Davidson, the general manager of UNM football, excited to talk to him. He will join us Thursday night. Justin Michael from DNVR and one of my favorite people that I've met in the last year, Colby Dant, from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and you can catch him on Sports Grid, sometimes talking college basketball bets and college football bets. So I'm excited to have him on. So that's Thursday night. But the big thing Thursday night is Bo Davidson, the general manager for the UNM football team. I've had a long day. I've had a long 3 weeks. It's been a lot. I will start with the OG squad. He's a Lobo fan since 1970. The voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, and I'm sure he's got a lot to say again tonight. Mr. Ed Nunez, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ryan. I wasn't able to attend the press conference. I had a show at the same time, but I went back and watched it and just finished it about half an hour ago. Took about 2 pages of notes. Certainly nothing like my son, who will take about 20 pages of notes and research everything there is. So, but I did. I was said a lot. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about it.
And to the lesser or better half, however you want to view it, he's a producer for ProView Networks and a key contributor to this mighty fine website west of the Mississippi, Mr. Nick Nunez. Nick, how you doing?
Certainly the lesser half of the Nunez duo, Ryan. I'm doing well, man. I'm excited.
What does your mom say to that?
She would never agree with that. Never. Yeah.
But anyway, no, it was a good day, man. Good day, great press conference. Excited for Coach Eric Olen and what he said today to rejuvenate kind of this Lobo program. So ready to talk about it with you guys.
Dear Lord, it's already 3-2 in Athletics Cubs in the first game, the first inning. Happy to have this gentleman back. You can follow him at NM Sportscapper on Twitter. And hey, for the first time, second time in like a week, we were acknowledged by the UNM athletic department. Only took 2.5 years. Happy to have this gentleman back on, because if you need to know something about a college basketball team or player, doesn't matter what level in Division I, he'll know the answer, and that's why I'm happy he's back tonight. A good friend of mine, Mr. Jacob Neff. Neff, how you doing?
Doing good, Ryan. Glad to be on talking. I did get to watch the press conference, majority of it today while I was working. Not seamlessly without being interrupted, but I did get to get a majority of it. So I've got a lot to say about that. I also haven't really talked with you guys about, my opinion on the hire and kind of, what I've seen from him. So, excited to get back into it and talk Coach Olen and the Lobos basketball.
All right. I was at the press conference today. A lot of enthusiasm, and Nick was there too, so I'll get his thoughts. Here's Fern Lobo, and Eric Olen is definitely a little bit laid back. He's from Mobile, Alabama. Then he lived in San Diego. I think he's a little bit of a Southern gentleman. He doesn't have a draw. He's definitely not Alabama man. Another South Park reference, Nick. And then he lived in San Diego for 21 years. I think they mentioned something about him being a surfer today. So that was very
cool. Tennis player. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
Tennis player. That's it. Tennis player. I thought they mentioned surf in there. That's how much I was paying attention. Here is Lobo on the hire. Fernando Lobo, your athletic director.
But beyond the X's and O's, what stood out to everyone I spoke with about Coach Olen was the kind of person he is. Humble, passionate, and driven. A coach who leads by example, who connects with his players, and who understands the opportunity and responsibility that comes with this role.
Nothing but nice things to say, obviously, in the honeymoon period. What I I didn't understand was he got in last night. They made the offer, and we'll talk about the MOU or MOE. I forgot. I didn't law. I didn't go to school for law. But I thought and nephew brought it to my attention. Richard Patino took the Xavier job last Tuesday, and he's now had his press conference today, a week later. Eric Olen got the job Sunday midday. They flew him out last night, and they had the presser today. The only thing I can say is it felt a bit rushed. I know I'm always super critical of that department. Other than that, it was well put on. You walked in, and I don't know, it felt like a big school. A lot of people were there. I'd probably say maybe 200, 300. That's my guesstimation. It was cool to hear President Stokes talk. Obviously, a bunch of jokes about how many of these press conferences we've had. Fernando Lobo is 120 days on the job, 4 months, and he's already had to hire a football coach and a new men's basketball coach. So pretty impressive on his part, and then pretty, I'm sure, chaotic on his part. But I think he's handled it like a champ. And like I said, a lot of youth over at that department. Except for Frank. I think Frank said he was the oldest guy there. But anyway, I like what Eric Olen had to say. I think he was probably a little not in a bad way, a little overwhelmed and a little nervous per se, because he had never dealt with that before. But I mean, it was a cool atmosphere, especially if you were there. Nick, you were there. You asked a question. We'll get into that. Your thoughts on the press conference today?
Thought it was great, man. I mean, I think everybody said what we expected them to say. I think my dad kind of mentioned it. There was nothing really that jumped off the page. It was all kind of typical introductory press conference talk. But it was just really good to get everybody in one space and just bring some excitement back to the program, man. I mean, it's hard. You lose in the NCAA tournament. The next 48 hours later, your coach is gone. And it's just been kind of a domino effect. So this program and this fan base needed something good to happen to it. And I think, today was a day where everybody just sat down, got introduced to the new coach. And so, no, I think all in all, man, it was really good.
I'm going to go to the comments very quickly here first. Whoops. Did any current players go to the coach's induction? I don't think introduction. I walked into the Davilo Center as Donovan Dent was walking out with some personal items. That's not a lie. And then as I was pulling up to the south side of the pit, Jovan Milicevic and I believe Daniel Thomas were walking to the press conference. Obviously, we just got the news tonight on some of the Portal Twitters, Portal Combat, and I had the Mortal Kombat theme queued up for last week's show, but I never played it. Philip Borovichinen is following Richard Patino, Santino to Xavier. So we got that news. Ed, I'm going to throw it over to you in regards to what you thought of the press conference today.
Well, like I said, I saw it just about 30 minutes ago, and I think you're right that he was nervous, a little bit overwhelmed. He put on the red blazer, and he said he hadn't worn red in a very long time. And I think one of the things, too, is leaving San Diego. He mentioned that he's been there 21 years. And, my wife and I were out there in October, and what a beautiful place. I mean, I wanted to stay longer. You got the ocean, the beach. It's 75 degrees almost all year long, it seems like. So, yeah, you could tell, as you mentioned, a little bit nervous. So they asked him quite a lot of things. And, he grew up in Mobile, Alabama, playing tennis more than anything. He mentioned Coach Carr at UC San Diego, gave him a chance there, and he's always, forever grateful to that. Players win games, connectedness. He talked a lot about that. Walking on the floor at the pit gave him chills. You remember, it's a fishbowl here. So I think in a way he was overwhelmed. He's looking at 500, maybe 300 to 400 people at a press conference. I don't know what they got at UC San Diego for games, but certainly nothing that they got as far as fan base here. So maybe like he's heard about it. He's heard about the pit. He's heard what a big fan base is. He's heard about the passion, and today he saw it. A little bit of it. It's not a game in the pit, but one of my friends, Phil Smith, we've had him on the Lobo Legend series, mentioned that when he was Lobo, people would talk to him all the time, and he didn't know these people, and he's from New York, so he was kind of guarded about it. Then he got to be a little bit more friendly. Lobo fans, especially right now, are rabid about the program. They want to see a continuance of an NCAA tournament, a tournament win last year in the Mountain West Conference, and then a regular season title and almost making the Sweet 16. They made a pretty good case for that. So I think Lobo fans want to know, hey, what's this guy about? I thought my son did a great job on that article because he whetted my appetite for more. I'm a basketball junkie, and my son showed some situations on how they're going to play on the offensive end. On the defensive end, I told my son that's part two. Of course, I'm challenging him. But anyway, I thought it was great. I thought he said a lot of all the right things. Humble, passionate guy. And just one real quick point, I'll turn it back to you. If you look at it, they've undergone a change in UNM athletics. No Danny Gonzalez, Dave Williams, Eddie Nunez, Bronco Mendenhall, Richard Patino. In their place, Fernando Lobo, Amy Bagan, Ryan Berryman, Eric Olen, and now Jason Coach Eck. You got Jason Eck in there. Whole new change, a whole new personnel. So things are, again, going back to people asking about Alford, I don't think he was ever even considered. I think Fernando Lobo wanted his guy. This is who he wanted. And I think all things considered, a rising star in college basketball, I think they got the right guy. I'm pretty pumped up about it.
Going back to the comments, I'm a realist, Andrea S. The entire program gone, even our ball boy. Call Xavier Pitt East. Our coach seems like a nice guy. No info on recruits, players, or staff. My stomach's still nuts. To defend Eric Olen, it's been like 48 hours, maybe 50. Number two, all the managers under Patino's staff were still there because my buddy Mike is a manager and he was talking to him. The only person following him to Xavier right now is Philip Borovichinen. I don't think it's the case with True Washington. Donovan Dent went to UCLA. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's been a long time since he's been on. So, Neff, you can chime in on the press conference today if you want, but I would like you to tell our listeners why this was such a good hire.
Yeah. I mean, we all have to appreciate what Coach Patino did. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He did an amazing job here. I think that he was an amazing recruiter. I did question sometimes late in games or maybe his, X's and O's in certain situations. I think it was warranted in some areas, maybe misuses of timeouts and so on and so forth. You don't get that with this guy. This guy lets his team play. They know exactly what he wants. He's very enthusiastic and gives everything to his players. He almost takes no credit for the job that he does, which is crazy because it is not easy. I know everybody says, oh, Big East, 30-5. Yeah, it's a small conference. Yeah, they don't have that great of a conference. He walked into the Spectrum this year and put it on Utah State and broke their undefeated streak with that team. He's a very solid coach. He's going to have a totally different outlook from what you're used to watching with Patino to what you're going to get with him. His offense is going to look different. I can say from my perspective, it's driven me nuts over the tenure that we've literally almost never had any outside shooters on this team. You're going to see a totally different thing. This guy wants shooters. This guy wants people that space it. He's going to want athletic bigs. He's going to want versatile bigs. You're probably not going to get that post like you see in Nelly where he's down below and dominating it. He wants everybody to be able to spread the floor, play a lot of different positions, and give teams different looks. And then on the defensive end, what I thought was the most, encouraging thing that he said today in the press conference is we play fast on offense, we play fast on defense, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get up a shot quick. We're going to make them struggle to find their best available shot. And if you watched any of their games this year, their defense, you have to also remember that this guy wasn't coaching as athletic of folks you're going to see in the Mountain West Conference. I mean, they bought into his system. They were unbelievable on defense. Let's not forget, for people that didn't maybe watch the tournament as exclusively as maybe some of us do, this team got smacked by Michigan to start the game, and they never gave up one time. They fought back. They had it down to a 1-point game within a minute to beat Michigan, who literally gave Alabama a run for about 30 to 35 minutes. Auburn a game for 30 to 35 minutes not too long ago to go to the Final Four. I mean, this guy's an unbelievable coach. I think you're going to see a totally different person when it comes to X's and O's. He's going to know what he wants to do, but more importantly, he's not going to get in the way of his guys. And I don't think Patino did that either. I think he gave them a lot of credit, a lot of leeway. But where Patino, I think, hedged on was his recruiting and the style of players that he got here. It might be a little bit of a different scenario with Olen. I think, he's never seen an NIL. He's never seen good money to throw at players. He'll need some of those athletic guys in this conference. You're going to have it. But I also think he's going to get some of those guys, like he said, that are looking to prove themselves, that are looking to, that he can get the best out of. Those are going to be strong bench players in this conference and guys that, eventually can make it to a starter. But he gets everything out of his players. I was super impressed with him this year. And even last year. Last year was one of his first times coaching, or his first time coaching in that D1 area. And he was strong, man. And their improvement into this year. And here's another thing. He figured out a way to keep his guys in the program with no NIL, no nothing. They were just they stayed with him. He figured out a way. And then I know a lot of Lobo fans online were talking about the potential of having somebody that's loyal. Now you can't speak to that, because if he keeps rising like he is and he has major success here, odds are we're probably going to lose him at some point. But this guy literally was loyal to the program and his coaches that brought him up for 21 years. So if you want loyalty, you've got your right guy too. Just one more comment on the press conference. Like you said, I think it was a bit rushed. I think he was a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, we have to understand his flight was delayed yesterday. He landed. He probably put something together. He got one little night of sleep, and he got thrown into the wolves today to do a press conference. I think he handled it as well as he could. But now he gets to settle in, make his hires, start his recruiting process, get his team together. I think it'll be a totally different situation here in the next 2 weeks. I know a lot of people are commenting, oh, the team's gone and everything. I mean, this is going to happen. It's happening everywhere, right? It's happening in Colorado State because the coach changes lead to your entire program or most of your program leaving. Doesn't necessarily mean they're gone. That's another thing. These guys might not have met with him in person, and now they're going to. They might have just had Zoom meetings. So we got 2 weeks to look at it. I would say let's pump the brakes on being nervous and so on and so forth. I think that's why the press conference was rushed, was so that way he can get in and start digging in and doing what he needs to do.
I agree with a lot of that. Nick, I'll go back to the press conference. Here is your 2 questions, and then you can comment on them.
Coach Nick Nunez, Pit Press Podcast. First question for you, red or green chili? Are you excited to try it?
I'm fired up to try it. I would say prior to the taste test, I'm leaning green, but I've heard good things about Christmas, so I'm looking forward to it.
Might be the only place in the country where you'll clap for food like that. So I just had to start there. Here's the basketball question.
And then one more for you, Coach. When you were at UC San Diego over the last 2 years, you kind of built your roster from Division II transfers. Mm-hmm. You kind of talked about wanting to recruit guys with a chip on your shoulder. Do you plan on carrying that strategy over to UNM?
We're going to recruit the best players we can for our program. We built our roster based on the constraints and resources that existed in that environment, and we'll do the same thing here. Those are not exactly the same, and so we'll evaluate who are the best players that fit the way we want to play, and that fit into the constraints and resources that we have here, and build our team that way. So is it possible that we'll have guys from Division II? Absolutely. I think we'll have guys from all different levels, because there's great players that exist everywhere, and we're open to all of them if they're the right fit for us.
Nick, I'll throw it your way. Just your reaction to his question.
Sure.
His answer to your question.
Well, I'll start with the green chili comment, Ryan. I mean, it's kind of a throwaway softball question, but I think it illustrates, how prepared he was to connect with UNM fans. I mean, red chili, green chili, there's no secret. I mean, that is authentic New Mexican, and he was able to relate very early. I mean, he just accepted the job 48 hours ago, and he already knows red, green, and Christmas. I'd say that's, from a PR standpoint, that's pretty good. To the basketball question, yeah, I mean, what's dominating kind of, the Twitter feed and or the X feed, not Twitter, and social media feeds right now is we have no players, right? The roster has kind of been gutted. And yeah, everyone's really anxious because the transfer portal closes, April 22nd, I think. And so, yeah, I think, Ryan, I was talking to you. I was like, a lot of what's fair is a lot of questions about how we're going to rebuild the roster. And I mean, to be fair to Coach Olen, like he said, he just got here Sunday. I mean, he's got a memorandum of understanding right now. Eventually, those will be memorialized into a formal contract, but he's got to figure out how to move his family. And so, I wanted to ask a question about, kind of his body of work at UC San Diego. If you look at the last 2 years, I think 6 players on his roster came from Division II. Transfers after 2 years in Division II to Division I at UC San Diego. His leading scorer, Aniwa, I'm going to pronounce that wrong, Tate Jones, 19 points per game, led the country in free throw attempts at one point this season was in the top 10 for Ken Palm College Hoops National Player of the Year. Another Division II transfer that he brought in, Hayden Gray. He shot 41% from three on 153 attempts and led the nation in steals at 3.2. So really, efficient guys that really kind of carried their offense and their defense, but they're Division II guys, and then he talked about, the resources being a little bit different at UC San Diego compared to how they are going to be here at UNM. UC San Diego, I don't really, I wanted to look more into this, and he made a comment at the press conference that they had a general manager at UC San Diego, and he was asked, I think, by Jeff Grammer if he's considering a general manager here. But I just don't know how much experience he had with NIL at UCSD. I don't think they had much. And so what he sold players on at the Division II level when he was recruiting them to UC San Diego was just an opportunity to play, some exposure, get yourself out there. NIL wasn't even on the table. The landscape's a little different here at UNM. We do have NIL money. We have one of the best collectives in the Mountain West Conference and west of the Mississippi. So he's going to have to navigate that and figure it out. I thought he gave a really good answer, though. And I mean, if there's a Division II recruit that can play at this level, he's the mastermind of finding those. He can find those diamonds in the rough. And I thought he gave a good answer to the question.
To segue off of that, I believe it was Van Tate, my man Van, that asked the question on NIL. And Nick, thanks for pointing this one out. The time code, the timestamps on the YouTube video.
Yeah, we have the resources to build a great basketball team here, and we're going to allocate those resources appropriately, thoughtfully, and again, make sure that our roster is complementary and that it makes sense, not just for us as a whole, but so that we perform as a group that's greater than the sum of our parts.
Neff, I'll throw that over to you when you hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to what we've talked about, right? I mean, this guy, is going to, I think he'll have a great sense of mixture of guys that they need to spend NIL money on and guys that he's giving a chance, right? But this is what makes great coaches, is finding diamonds in the rough, looking at people and saying, I want to give that guy a chance. I mean, if it wasn't for that on his team last year, probably nowhere near the talent that they had, right? So he's gonna mix it up. I don't think he's afraid to use the NIL money, but I also don't think he's afraid to use his eye test and say, I like this kid, I want this kid, I want to give him a chance. It'll be a different story now too when you have money to throw at people, even D2 level, even if it's a small quantity to come here. Most people aren't going to be getting those looks and those offers from people, right? So I think it's going to be good. I think it's really going to be a good situation. I really, really like the way he looks at his outlook on teams. It's not necessarily driven around, how can I get every best player possible, like how do I get, everybody has a wish list, right? I don't think he needs that. I think that this guy he has confidence in the evaluations that he makes of people, which is something else that I feel confident in, because, when you have a coach that's confident in what he's looking for and what he wants, it translates to the team, right? The confidence that you have in your team and your players, it shows when you're on the court. It shows. I think he even made a comment about that, which is like, hey, I'm not going to disrupt the game. I'm going to let the players play. That's important in today's world, because we know that the players are pretty much the star attraction and what people go to look and watch. And he gives that full force power to his teams. So I think that's what these guys are going to like when they sit down with him and talk with him too, is, he doesn't really, blow any smoke up your rear end. In a sense, he's straightforward with you. So love everything about it. And I think, everything that he said today was pretty much pitch perfect of what I thought he was going to come in and say, what he does. And he laid it all out on the line for us in day one. So let's give him, like I said, let's give him a couple weeks to make some evaluations of players, see what he's working with, see what he's given. And I think we'll have a roster, a well-constructed roster put together here very soon.
All right, Ed, I'm going to read. I took note of this, and I want to credit Rob Portnoy, voice of the Lobos, for this, because it just popped up on my feed, and that's what I was looking for. This is what Olen said at his press conference today, and I also wrote about the press conference. Go to the Pit Press NM and then the Pit Press Plus for exclusive content. Appreciate this. Again, Rob Portnoy, he quoted this on Twitter. And this is one of the things that he said that really struck a chord with me. I've been to so many of these things, I really don't care. I've been interested in Eck, and he has killed it. And I thought Olen did a good job today. Obviously, he's not Richard Patino, and he's not Bronco Mendenhall. Thank God. Neff, let's see if I have it. Hold on.
Thank God.
There we go. Thank you, Bob Uecker. Rest in peace. All right, back to my point. This one's for you, Ed, and you can comment on it, because I thought this was a powerful statement. And you don't hear many coaches say this. So that's my 2 cents on it. Quote, "This is not my program. This is bigger than any individual. Lobos, this is your program. I know I'm in the right place. I love being a part of something bigger than myself. We're going to put together a program of servant leaders. This is a championship program." Ed, I wanted your thoughts on that.
Said it's one of the best jobs in college basketball. He said that. So the other thing he said, I took notes, tries not to overcoach, not a play caller. And my son and I go back and forth on that. There's a lot of coaches that stop, call 3, run X, run 5, run fist, run Duke. He said that. So he gives his players a lot of freedom to do that. Pace and space. He talked about that. We mentioned that. Moving the ball, moving with energy. I only saw a little bit of their highlights, and I like the way they space the ball, and I especially like the extra pass. I think you're going to see a lot of that. So when they said about him not having a huge ego, that kind of plays into that. He's not taking in. George Scott had a real good conversation with him. Lenny Mowry, one of my friends that I played with at Highland, mentioned that they sat and talked to him for 15 minutes, and he was telling them about the way he plans to coach and his plans here. So I don't know that we would have had Steve Alford doing that, or Steve Alford was a great coach here, but he didn't have time for a lot of chit chat. He wanted to get in there and get the job done. I'm not saying that Coach Olen's not like that, but I think it goes to what they said about him. Everybody talks about him a rising star, but he's going to be a player's coach, I think, and that doesn't mean he's going to be run over either with the personnel he's going to recruit that's going to fit his system. He mentioned that created turnovers. They asked him about your identity. Smart, tough, skilled, player development. That's important. He mentioned that too. So I just think, he mentioned high value shots. That's the offense. And if you look at it, the only clip I saw a little bit of it in my son's clip on the article. The clips I saw, and we mentioned they're down 10-0, 12-0 against Michigan, fought back, punched back, had a chance at the end. So there's so much ahead. And I think people are wondering, what about the roster? And once he starts filling that in, I think we'll really have a better look at it. But I think all those things considered, he's not the guy that's like, I have to take the credit or, call every play or have my handprints on everything we do offensively and defensively. I think he's going to be trusting in the players that he recruits, much like he did at UC San Diego for 21 years. That's the way I look at it.
I don't know if either one of you have anything to say of that. I made my point quick. That's one of the best things I've heard said at any press conference, other than maybe Tom Izzo 2 weeks ago. But Nick or Neff, I don't know if you have anything to respond to that.
No, I just think that, it kind of just echoes what we've been saying about him, right? So, unselfish guy, wants to give his credit to his team, his players, and let them run. I think they'll understand his philosophy, but it's nice to hear, this isn't about me. This show isn't about me. This is about the fans. It's about putting on good winning basketball. It's from day one. It's not about him, right? And we've had plenty of those coaches in the past here in New Mexico, I think, where they've gotten that vibe a little bit. And I think he's just going to be an unselfish basketball coach, somebody that's really well liked. I think he's a little timid right now because, like we said, he's been thrown into the fire. So if you didn't get the energy that you usually get from him, from everything else that I've ever seen in interviews, in-game interviews, I mean, the guy's just always upbeat, happy to be doing what he's doing. He never, doesn't answer a question or give people time. And it already sounds like that's happening today where he's talking to people for 15 minutes and he's been here for less than 24 hours. So that's really all I have to say about that.
One more comment, Ryan, to that. I think it's also important who he brings in. He mentioned assembling a staff of assistants, and we know how important Isaac Chu and Dave Pilipovich were to Richard Patino. Somebody put out in April Fool, I'm sure, that Corey Alford was going to be an assistant coach here. And I read that for a minute. And I was like, oh, April Fools. Okay. So, I don't think that's happening. But I think that's important as who he brings in as part of his staff. And my son, having worked with Damian Segura as an assistant at Pius, understands how important those assistant coaches are. Isaac Chu was the recruiter here. And he was even mentioned just for a minute as a possible successor to Richard Patino. He didn't have any college experience at the D1 level. So, maybe he gets it later and gets a head coaching job. But I think that's important too, the assistant coaches he brings in to help him. So he said all those things are in the works. Next couple of days, watch out. I think we'll be hearing about players that are going to come to play here. And then the assembly of his coaching staff, which is really important.
I don't think I played did I play his audio on recruiting? I don't. I think I'll play this.
Recruiting is nonstop. We're working through the portal. But we have to make good decisions, right? We have to be smart about how we approach and build the roster. We want to build the roster that complements each other, that makes sense in terms of the combination of skill sets. And so we are going to work with urgency, but we're going to be thoughtful in our decision-making and recruit the right people that fit what we're trying to do. So we're working at that constantly. We hope to have that done as soon as possible, but we aren't going to allow the timing and the pace to put us into a situation where we make bad decisions.
If I played that again, I apologize. I guess I wanted to hear that again. I don't know. I thought that was fascinating about it. And maybe that's why they're pushed the press conference, because they feel the need to have everything going immediately. I mean, they could have given him a week, but I think it's such a big deal here. Anybody want to hear about his contract? And Nick, I know you're a lawyer. I don't know what you can and can't say, but it is a memorandum of understanding. He's going to make it's a 5-year contract effective on, I guess, the 30th. He's set to make $1.2 million this year, and he will get a raise every year of $50K. For such things as Mountain West Coach of the Year, he'll get here's his incentives: $25,000. The Naismith National Coach of the Year at $50K. Any kind of Mountain West regular season title in the tournament is $25K. So a share or solo. NCAA at large bid is $25K. First 4 win is $25K. This kind of blows my mind. Any NCAA tournament round win, 64-32, 16-8, or 4 is $50K. A national championship would get him an additional $150,000. I would imagine if he did it here, give him $10 million. Ed, that comment's directed at you. A top 25 finish in the AP poll is an additional $25,000. This one, I wish Eric was on for. 20 wins in a Ken Palm minimum of top 50, $25K. 20 season wins. And then 20 season wins in a Ken Palm minimum of top 25, $50K. So that's how much Ken Palm power holds. Does anything jump out at you? And I might start with the man of the law, with Nick. And again, I don't know what you can or can't say.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to refrain from giving any legal opinions on this show, but I will give some comments. The buyout, I think, is the thing that everybody kind of wants to see. And, Ryan, you can check me on this, but looking at it, it looks like the buyout in year 1 is $2,650,000, drops a little bit in year 2 to $2,025,000. Then in year 3, it's $1,100,000. Year 4, $560,000. Year 5, 0. So, heavy penalties if he tries to go somewhere else after one good year, right? Let's say he finds a roster, we're competitive for a conference championship, we get into the NCAA tournament, we win a game. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that would be best case scenario, I think. And then the buyouts, in the $2 million range. That's pretty big, man. If you look at Steve Alford's buyout, his contract at Nevada, it was kind of structured the same way, a real heavy buyout in the first couple years. He's on an 11-year deal at Nevada, and his buyout now, I think, is $1.5 million. So that's what kind of jumps off the page for me, Ryan, is the buyout provisions.
Very quickly, it is because, Nick, you're not the only one, and I butcher everybody's name on this show. Uniwa.
Uniwa. I just need to practice saying it.
Yeah. I got your dad to say Milicevic and Borovic, and I think we can all do that.
Took a while, man.
Hey, no, it's my great aunt married into Ivanovitz, and they shortened it to Warren on Ellis Island. So there you go. Anybody have any final thoughts before I get to comments? I did want to hit on this. Again, we're not doing that long of a show tonight. We wanted to just recap the press conference today. But Dean Thomas transferred to LSU. Obi Ogbum transferred to Baylor. And then the UNM baseball team is in Cruces tonight, and they are beating the Aggies 10-5, what looks to be in the 5th or 6th inning right now. So there you go. And I do want to go to the comments. Does anybody have any kind of final thoughts on anything? For those I'm a broken record on this show because I play devil's advocate all the time. And I have sort of, for the latter part of a decade, despised the UNM athletic department. And it's happened slowly but surely. And I calls it as I sees it, or at least I try to think to, and I try not to have probably have more negative blinders on than positive blinders. But by the way, that was a better press conference than Mike Loxley's third digit press conference. We were talking about that. I think my buddy Troy pointed that out today, who is from Maryland. What was I saying? Yeah, I've been, I always play devil's advocate. Somebody was like, you got to remain positive, and I was like, well, we didn't use positivity to defeat the Nazis and the Japanese. It was men and ammunition. Obviously, he needs men to shoot the ball in the hoop. That's a drastic, probably, metaphor. It's really bad. I am incredibly, I don't want to use the word inspired, but there is optimism from me. And if you've been listening to us the last 2.5 years and people have gotten on me on Twitter that I hate New Mexico, well, it's a gift and a curse. Do I miss New York and New Jersey? Hell yeah. Do I not miss any things about it? Hell yeah. When I lived back east, I always bragged about New Mexico. When I'm here, I brag about New Jersey, New York. So go figure. Anyway, getting to my point. I said it the other night. I think what Fernando Lobo has done. We've had Ryan Berryman on. He's a little bit of an acquaintance. I know him. And he's got UNM men's basketball management. I know Nate Strong. Nate, I don't even know what you do there, but I love you, man. I think you're funny. If you're watching. And then Jalen Dominguez, who I think Eric knows. But this and it doesn't necessarily have to be youthful, but I think it helps in this case, is kind of this youthful movement, especially with the hiring of Coach Jason Eck. I thought Richard Patino said all the right things. And I'm very optimistic about the future. I don't know what football will hold this year. Year two, I'm going to set the standards high. And I think Jason Eck knows that. What I know and what I've seen from Eric Olen, you just don't walk into a chalky tournament and kind of punch a fifth seed in the mouth like they did in the second half. That game could have been theirs. I think it was maybe just a little bit of a different talent level. Now that we're all dumber for listening to that incoherent rant, you know what? And I apologize, guys. One thing. Here's Richard Patino at his Xavier press conference today, and it's a little bit long.
I want to say thank you. Greg talked about it. I'm the head coach at FIU. We have a really good year, and I get offered the Minnesota job at 30 years old, job in the Big Ten. We had some success. We weren't horrible by any means, but we did not have the consistent success that I dreamed of. And after 8 years, at about 38 years old, 37 years old, I was fired. And that was very humbling and very sobering. And I had no choice but to pick myself off the mat, acknowledge what I need to do better, and grow. And the greatest thing that ever happened to me was New Mexico, because they called me and offered me a job. I'd been there one time for a game in the Elite Eight. My dad beat West Virginia to go to the Final Four in the pit. So I took a leap of faith. And I would not be at a dream job like Xavier without the people at New Mexico. The fans, they treated my family so very well. The administration, whether it was Eddie Nunez, Fernando Lobo, the new athletic director, they believed in me. Garnett Stokes, our president, believed in me. And I learned, in order to succeed at the highest level, you cannot do it alone. And so many people there helped me win those conference championships, helped me go to back NCAA tournaments. And I'm truly, truly grateful for them. It was very, very emotional and hard to say goodbye to so many special people.
And Ed, and I'm sorry, then I'll get your final thoughts on everyone, but I had to play that and I forgot about it. And I'll get the rundown with this. I think it's Richard Patino being Richard Patino, saying all the right things. And once again, I'll say it. I don't know if he was necessarily the best X's and O's guy, but what he did here with the Lobo basketball renaissance was quite impressive. And to win a tournament game and kind of give Michigan State a hard time. And I don't know what it is, Neff, about, and maybe Ed with the history. I don't know what it is about UNM losing to teams in the first or second round. They end up in the Elite Eight or the Final Four or winning a title. It's so weird. They didn't, they lose to a team in the round of 64. They don't get beat in the round of 32. It's weird. And I'm going to start with you on that one. And I know I don't think there's as much animosity here as Bronco Mendenhall, but I just wanted your thoughts on Patino at his introductory press conference for the Xavier Musketeers.
I wish him well. My son said that he brought the buzz back to UNM basketball, and he did. He's actually probably, after Norm Ellenberger, he might be my second favorite UNM coach. Classy all the time. We went to press conferences. He answered every question, looked you in the face, never snapped, never was rude or I really liked him. I did. And so he was only here 4 years. It seemed like it was longer, but it was a quick 4 years. And, Xavier is going to be a tough place for him. I really think it's going to be tough there, but I wish him well. I really do. I think with Coach Alford, I didn't even have that animosity. It was UCLA. You couldn't blame the guy. But Mendenhall, I can blame him plenty, and I will. I hope he loses every game. Every game. I hope he never wins another game in his life, but that's just the way I feel. But with Coach Patino, I think I think a lot of them. I really do, and I wish him well. I really do.
I've said it a zillion times on this show for Steve Alford, and I defend him. You don't quit your job, you quit your boss. I'm going to save this one for Neff last on his thoughts on Patino. Nick, I saw you laughing at your dad. I don't know why. I love when he says that he hopes Bronco Mendenhall never wins another game. Nick, I just wanted your thoughts on Richard Patino and that comment on UNM in New Mexico at his introductory press conference in Cincinnati. I wonder if he's had Skyline Chili yet.
Right. Yeah. I didn't get to watch all of Coach Patino's press conference. I did see that clip, and I thought it was genuine. It came across as very genuine to me. You could just tell his mannerisms as he was speaking the words. Like, it really felt like it came from the heart. Think about how he left here. I mean, he did an interview with Jeff and JJ the morning after he announced he was leaving, which was, less than 12, 15 hours after the news broke. He was on the radio with Jeff and JJ, and then he did a podcast with Jeff Grammer on the Talking Grammar podcast. So, he didn't have to do that. He didn't get paid for that. And no, I liked Coach Patino. I did. I get, the comments about the X's and O's. I think there were times, particularly with Jamal Mashburn Jr., Jalen House, just some of the shot selection and how the offense flowed with those guys and others. And those are just, that's just me thinking out loud. But I have mostly good things to say about Coach Patino, and just wish him well at Xavier.
Neff, to you. And what I wanted to say was, what it did feel when he said I think when you use the word that you have to be humbled and you're that age, I will buy it that he was genuine there. I just want to say that I did. I really did.
Yeah, no, I think that everything he said was, like Nick said, it was genuine. He had a great run here. It really did resurrect his career. He recognizes that. He doesn't have this opportunity if he fails at UNM. If he fails at UNM, it probably just goes downhill from there, right? I think this place helped him with his name and his legacy and what they've done for the sport of college basketball. And everything that I've ever seen about Patino, or, kind of like Ed said, when you're in press conferences, when you ask him a question, even if you weren't in press conferences and just in passing and you asked him a question, he'd answer it. Another thing, I just was at the Mountain West basketball tournament in Vegas. I don't know how long ago it was now, 3 weeks ago. He went to the prep rally. He literally sat there, which he didn't have to do. The university prep rally, he didn't have to be there. They didn't introduce him. They didn't introduce anybody. The only person that spoke was Garnett Stokes and Fernando Lobo. He sat there and took pictures with the fans for 25 to 30 minutes. I mean, he didn't have to do that. His kids sat there and waited patiently while he did it. And he talked to every single person, shook their hand. I think that we have bad taste in our mouth from when Alford left. And that taste just has to be wiped away at some point. Not every single person is Steve Alford and leaving 10 days after they signed a contract. This guy was a great coach. He did great things for our program. He should never be booed when people come here. It's just like if you had a job and you were offered a job at a competitor or whatever it is, and they offered you twice your salary, you are going to move and take it 10 out of 10 times. The only thing that I can think of is especially the only thing that I can think of is family related, and he's going closer to his family, right? So he's just a great guy, great coach. I hope nothing but the best for him. I love watching basketball, so I'll be rooting for him. But I think he was great. And I think as Lobo fans, we need to look at it as the resurgence of our program and putting us back on the map and what he did for that, right? Because if he didn't do that, we could be in a bigger hole than what we think we are. So I think we're very lucky to have him, and I appreciate him.
One thing I think with the Marquette game, obviously they can't help when sorry, reading a comment. I thought it worked out in UNM's favor for them. And obviously I know they can't help the scheduling, but for them to get that game on a Friday night when casual fan, diehard fan, people have these days blocked off. So it's not a typical Friday night. You know what to expect, whether you're on, you're in New York City or Seattle, Washington, and the time change there. For them to be on at 5:30 against another premier point guard in the country, I thought also did wonders for this program. I think that was such a big thing. And to kind of, just kind of the way they weathered that storm. Again, I was impressed. And as I said many times on this show, you got to shut a guy up like me. I still think the program, and maybe Eric Olen's the guy, I need to see you play on the second weekend. I'm going to say that. I won't. They're now 0-7 in the round of 32. They didn't see expansion, the most by any program. I do want to go to the comments, and I think this is good for maybe our Jerry Springer final thought. Luis Torres, what are your realistic expectations for year one with our Lobos under Olen? I will take it, then I'll throw it to you guys. I'm going to be quite honest with you. Round of 32 or more or bust. Straight up. I think if Utah State can do it, you can do it on Cesar Chavez and University. I think this guy's a good enough coach. But I think it's NCAA tournament. Maybe I'm setting the bar high. I think right now I think everybody wants to get in the tournament and win. I think that I'm taking under 15 wins. I don't think there would be any shame in them also getting in the NIT and advancing, or getting in this basketball crown and going there and maybe winning a game or two. Is this a round robin, Neff? Do you know?
No, it's an actual tournament. So
okay,
it's a 16 seat or 16 team bracket that plays down.
Gotcha. And you do or die. All right. I mean, even if they got in that and won a couple games, but I just think it's and Will Weber of the Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I were talking about in Cleveland. It's such a weird program because it's almost like a traditionalist program that is it has tradition because it's traditionalist. And I get the pit is rowdy and loud. It's true. The pageantry is there. But it's also a program that hasn't had much March success. And maybe I need to get out of my way with that, but only talking sports. Is it the rare instance where you forget the loser? I think I mentioned it on the show and to a group of friends. If you follow the sport and you love history like I do, why have the VCUs and the Wichita States and the St. Peters of the world and the Loyola Chicagos of the world And if you watch Loyola Chicago's run, they got lucky. I mean, I know you still got to win, but they got incredibly lucky with their matchups. And like what they won, they won like 3 of those games at the buzzer. They beat Miami at the buzzer. They beat Tennessee at the buzzer in the 2018 run. I mean, it was still magical and put Porter Moser on the map, but I just think this program needs to win in March. What I saw at UC San Diego from this guy, I think he can come in here and do it. I hope it's not a Danny Sprinkle type, I think there's going to be some loyalty. But anyway, that's again, we are all dumber for listening to me talking the incoherent ramble. Nick, I'll start with you. What are your realistic expectations for this team when we don't really have a team?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. And there's just so many unknowns. You hate to speculate. One thing that we do know is we have resources. I mean, we've got, again, the best NIL collective, one of the best in the Mountain West with 505 Sports Venture. Encourage everybody to go to the website and donate. If you know somebody with some serious capital who's interested in Lobo basketball, hit up Kurt Roth and Mackenzie Bishop, because that's how we can remain competitive regardless of who the coach is. Richard Patino, Eric Olen. I think this program and our fan base, we can't get married and fall in love with players and coaches. It's the Lobos. It's Lobos on the jersey and the cherry blazer, not the people who are wearing them. So, we have the resources to get good in 1 year. And yeah, we need to get some players. He talked about that at the press conference. Like you, Ryan, I expect us to be competitive, man. I expect us to compete for a conference championship. My expectations is we should finish close to the top 6 in the conference, and we should be right there, in the conference tournament. Hopefully we can schedule some good games and get our net and Ken Palm up. If we're able to do those things, playing in the postseason is what I expect. Hopefully the NCAA, I'd take the NIT or the crown, but competing for a conference championship and playing postseason basketball. That's what I expect.
I think that the NIT has become a beautiful thing for the mid-major because it was UC Irvine, UNT, Loyola, and who was the 4th team, Neff?
Tennessee, Chattanooga.
That's right. It was Chattanooga. I know Irvine won. Who won between Chattanooga and Loyola?
Well, it was a close game just a second ago. I had it on my phone. It is now 55-47 Chattanooga in the 11 minutes and 25 seconds to go in the second half. No,
I think that's a very cool thing for the mid majors. And I don't know if Nick Lorenzen's watching from Mid Major Madness, but hell yeah, he's probably in heaven. Ed, I'll go to you. Your realistic expectations for next year, even though we don't have a basketball team.
That's the key there. We don't know. We don't know who he's bringing in. We won't know until that roster's assembled. We would like to see a seamless handoff of the baton from Patino to Olen, and the Lobos keep running in the direction they're going. We like what we've heard about his coaching philosophy and what he said. It's you got to put a team together. So we don't know. Now, Ryan, I'd love to see them make that Sweet 16, man. They're 0-7. They've never been to one. So it's kind of hard for me to sit there and say they'll be there, until I see it. And I've been a fan a long time. And there's been, I still go back to that Louisville game when Spider Smith had the ball and gives it to David Gibson with 8 seconds left. I was so mad because they really had a chance to beat Louisville. So, he's a good coach, but again, it's personnel matters. Who's he bringing in? What kind of players? Last year, they were a favorite to win the conference or come in second. Boise State was favored to win, and New Mexico was favored to come in second. As it turned out, New Mexico won the regular season title with guys like Dent, Nelly. He bought in longer, more athletic guys. He said he was going to do that. Bought Borovichinen in, bought Nolan in. He bought in Mustafa Amzil was still here. Kay Dotson, Milicevic, he bought him in as a freshman. So that worked. So personnel matters. We won't know a thing. I can't make any predictions until I see the roster. So we got a couple of at least a couple of months to see who he's bringing in, and then I'll start looking at it and say where they could realistically end up. Because we have to find out about the players, see them. We haven't seen them. We don't know we can just look on Twitter and see their highlights, but I won't know anything until the personnel, he brings in personnel, then we'll see.
I got to go to my hardcore metaphor analogy again. Didn't defeat the Nazis and Japanese with with just positive vibes or good vibes. It was men and ammunition. Neff, your thoughts, and then I'm going to throw this one in there from Jerry Ortega. You can answer this after. Which players do you see as a realistic players that might, I'm sorry, I got to reread that. Which players do you see as a realistic players that might come back from last year's team? Which players do you see coming back maybe?
Yeah, so my realistic expectations for Coach Olen, well, they're kind of written in his contract, right? They want him to schedule well. He's got to be in the top 50 to get his incentives, right? He's going to schedule games that I think are competitive with us. We already have some that leak over in the next season that we still will continue to play. But I think that, with the way that we've been attacking things as a university and, as a program, is pulling some of the upper end talent that maybe don't get to see the court on some of the bigger teams, bring them down a level of basketball to play in our conference. We've seen some success from that. I think we'll get some mid-major transfers that come over that will fit in nicely. But with Olen's coaching, with the state of the Mountain West right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, Colorado State's changed. San Diego State's losing a lot of guys. Boise's going to lose a couple guys from graduating. It's going to look different. So I think they'll have a chance. I know you were saying somebody might have said under 15 wins. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see realistically how they do that. I think they're going to be pretty competitive, man. I think people are going to not believe until they see, which is the eye test, and what is rightfully so from people. But I think once they see what Olen does and the type of talent he brings in and how he coaches them, I think it'll be a different outlook. So I have confidence in him. There's a lot of good guys still out there to target. I mean, what is there? 1,100 players in the portal. I mean, for God's sakes, my daughter might be in the portal. I don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous. But there's more than,
it was 1,600. It was 1,600.
There you go. I mean, half of I don't know. It's ridiculous. I mean, you'd have to brush through that list to see, but there is definitely 9 or 10 players out there that we can pull together to make a good basketball team with Coach Olen. I know you said you wanted me to touch on who I think could come back. Who I'd love to see come back is Jovan. I think he would work in this offense. I think he would get a great deal of playing time. I even would like to see Cade come back. I don't think he got as much time as he should have early on in the season. So he was a little hesitant on putting him in. I know we had to rely on him sometimes when, Dent needed a breather or whatever the case is, but I'd like to see him come back. Realistically, though, I think that maybe Jovan might be the only expectation of who returns that saw lengthy minutes, to be honest with you. And then from there, I don't think so. I think there might be people looking at other opportunities. So for me, I'm hoping Jovan.
Yeah, I think that would be a key. All right. Wanted to go to some of the commenters before we get out, and I want to thank all of our listeners. I'm going to plug our website again. I've been writing a lot more. That was my background. pitpressnm.com. Check us out, and then we have a subscription based with exclusive content. That's where my mind went in the gutter right away, and I told somebody about it, and they were like, dude, it was Eddie, by the way, Jacob. It was our friend Eddie then. He was like, wait, like an OnlyFans? I was like, you're an idiot. Anyway, no, it's not an OnlyFans. It's exclusive content. Nick, I'm looking right at you. Please check out Nick's article on spacing and pace and what he thinks Eric Olen's offense is going to be like that, be next year. I'm going to try to write a little bit more on what he talked about today. I thought there was a lot more to it than just the story of the introductory press conference. Usually there is. I was always thinking about Jason Eck and his dad coaching at Bradley and took Bradley to the NCAA tournament, I believe. So very cool. All right, to the commenters. I answered that one. The Vision 3030. Holding my breath till we assemble our squad. Laugh out loud. It's me, Candy Morgan. Good Morgan. Philip can bring. Okay, that was my fault. I misread that like I always do. Philip can brick threes and pump fake into the Big East now. 2 of the last 3 champions are from the Big East. I love Lobo fan taking a big fat dump on the Big East. It used to be my favorite conference. Matthew, I felt like he looked back on his UCS days a bit much. As a Lobo fan, I wanted more fire passion for what he wants here at UNM. Once again, I always play devil's advocate, and in his defense, he's 44 and all he's known is UCSD. He's been there for 21 years. That comment I read by Rob Portner where he said it wasn't his program. When do you ever hear a coach say that? That's the way I looked at it. This is a shot at me. Listen to Grammer's podcast. He was on the Xavier Media Guy. All staff is gone. Yeah, I guess I misspoke because the managers are still here. The only player that's gone is Borovichyn, and I know he did take his coaching staff with him, but I don't think he took everything but the kitchen sink. It's me, Candy Morgan. You think the old staff was going to say, I don't know if that's a shot at me or Andreas, but if it's viewer on viewer crime, I'm all for it. Michael Cedillo, I heard Olen had picked one of Steve Halford's son as his assistant coach. I haven't heard that yet. And I think a lot of people would blow up with that. Richard Patino doesn't even have players like Xavier. UNM fans are bozos. There we go. John Romero, yes, believe UNLV guard Dean Thomas signed with it's Dean Thomas Jr. signed with LSU today and Wyoming forward. Odin, it was with San Diego State today. I didn't see that, but Obi Ogbum signed with Baylor. I mentioned that earlier. Kino, and again, dude, I'm so sorry. Kino Kiene? Keeney, God, I'm an idiot. Samsonite. I was way off. Really wanted to see not going to work here anymore. Really wanted to see Uriah Tenete and Jake Hall in a Lobo uniform. Bet Jason Eck wouldn't mind seeing Tenete at quarterback either. LOL. I don't pay much attention to recruiting. I just don't. I know who Jake Hall is now. Learned that the other day.
I'm not
Joe,
sure
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure Tenete would work at quarterback in a division. I think he's like 5'10", and that's what they have him listed at. So he's kind of undersized. So I'm not sure that would work as a quarterback in our system, but who knows?
Allen Iverson was a good quarterback. Joe the Jeweler, what's up, man? D2 has some dogs. That is true. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert on D2 or D3 or even a lot of the little guys that I watch that I lose money on. As he said, players with chips on the shoulder. He did. I mean, look at the player that went Durango to Wyoming to now Baylor, I believe. Yeah, Ogbe Ogbum. The rough all over, diamonds in the rough all over, and he has a way of finding them. Here you go, Ed, and I saw you responded. How awesome would it be if Colin Nill would take the assistant coaching position here instead of staying at Hawaii?
Yeah, no thanks, man. No thanks.
Why would the penalties not be higher the more into the contract you go? See, because I mean, you probably are going to get fired. Seeing as the longer you're here, the more of your chance you have to make a name and get offered a bigger contract. Uriah Tenete, a UCSD, I did that in an article, a UCSD commit who played against Eli Arenas in high school, not to mention Eli Arenas, who is a McDonald's All-American. Scored 45 points against Eli and got one of the best of him that night. Hope he plans to follow Coach Olen here to Albuquerque. By the way, Jeff Grammer tweeted out something really good, I thought. All the last names are super short. Olen, Lovo, and Eck. I love it. There it is. I'm taking it under 15 wins. Patino was leaving regardless. Let's not forget he had interviewed at previous schools going back to last season. I think they just do it all the time. Listening to UC San Diego fans on Reddit and X, they are just as upset as we are losing Patino. I would imagine. I predict our preseason conference I predict our preseason conference rank will be 5th. New coach, new team. It won't be easy. I mean, that's true. Look what Patino did in his first year. Any final thoughts from any of you guys?
No, sir.
All right. We're going to wrap it up. Thursday night, Bo Davidson, general manager of the UNM football team, Colby Dant from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and Justin Michael from DNVR. I wanted to get his thoughts on everything that happened at Colorado State. Please check out the Pit Press NM, our website. A lot of written content on there. That word makes me cringe. Stories. It's a news outlet. That's what we try to be. This show's more opinionated. Check it out. Again, it was my background, and I've got a couple guys on here who know more basketball than I just appreciate the history of it. And I was watching on YouTube last night the documentary on UNLV in the late 80s and early 90s under Tark the Shark called The Running Rebels of UNLV. That's up my alley, not what Evan Maya has to say. No offense to Evan Maya. I'm the son of an electrical engineer. My head wants to explode. The basketball guys know what they're talking about. Sorry, I got a very important text and I got distracted by that. I apologize. Yeah, check out our website. There is still free content on there and paywall. The Pit Press Plus, more in-depth writing, more featurettes. Check that out. I want to thank our sponsors, Affordable Solar, Hydro Bar, Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Roth. Mackenzie coming on a lot. I know it was the OGs tonight. Thank them. Capital Fort Santa Fe. Eric Malton, my business partner. I hope I said everything that you needed me to say, even though I should have written a script. Ed Nunez, a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Ed, thanks for joining tonight.
You bet, Ryan.
Appreciate it. And then the better half of the Nunez, I don't know. I'm going to get in trouble. I love your dad. Nick Nunez. How about this? The younger of the Nunez brothers. That would still get me in trouble. Nick Nunez, Esquire. Nick, thanks for joining.
Of course, man. Great to talk with you guys.
And as always, I'm happy to have him back, Mr. Jacob Neff. You can follow him on Twitter at NM Sports Capper.
Yep. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. It was nice getting on, talking with you, Nick and Ed, and the old crew, and just sharing some thoughts. So thanks for inviting me back.
Yep. And I'll do it one more time.
Oh, thank God.
And baseball's back.
Oh, thank God.
Rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Everybody have a good evening. My name's Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. We'll be back Thursday night. And as I always say, don't do what I would do. Have a good evening.
The Mania has started, and you'll find slam dunk savings and selection during our Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary all year long, and that means buzzer-beating incentives and special dealer offers, like a new 24 Ford Bronco Big Bend Sasquatch, lease for $499 a month. Or a new Ford F-150, now $1,500 or 2.9% APR during this Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.